Hello, my name is Matthew Darlitz and I'm the Editor-in-Chief of The Neuropsychotherapist. The Neuropsychotherapist is a quarterly e-magazine devoted to informing psychotherapists about the latest neurobiological, psychological and somatic knowledge to enhance their clinical practice. The magazine has a multidisciplinary biopsychosocial perspective, and our hope is that the publication will give you news, reviews and the latest research from complementary fields that will be valuable to your research and to your practice. And we're also the home of the International Journal of Neuropsychotherapy. It's an open access online journal that publishes articles on various aspects of integrative biopsychosocial issues related to psychotherapy. The aim of the journal is to explore the neurobiological and other underpinnings of mental states and disorders to advance the therapeutic practice of psychotherapy. So we hope that you find these tools and resources very useful for your clinical practice, and we'd love to have your feedback. Now we're about to release another issue of our e-magazine, The Neuropsychotherapist, and so I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an idea of what's coming up. This is going to be released on the 1st, so in a few days' time. We've got Cultivating Inner Space by Terry Marks Tarlow, a case study of non-fatal bilateral thalamic thrombosis by Richard Hill. Judith Rustin writes about Beyond the Words, the implicit dimension of psychoanalytic treatment, contributions from neuroscience. Lou Cozzolino has got an article, Experience-Dependent Plasticity, the Science of Epigenetics. And from Robert Moss and Christine Mahan, where there's Emotional Restructuring, Clinical Biological Perspectives on Brain Involvement. And we've got a David Van Nuys interview, that's Shrink Wrap Radio, with John Arden about his new book, The Brain Bible. And of course we have all the usual columns and news articles as well. So look out for that. Now we've missed out on Richard Hill for a few weeks. He's been away. He's been in LA last week at a conference, and so I'm excited to hear what happened over there. So thanks, Richard.
Hello everybody and welcome to UCLA campus in Los Angeles in California.
I wish they all could be California. I wish they all could be California. I wish they all could be California
And we have behind me the wonderful symbol of UCLA, the Bruins, so that wonderful bear. But we're here for the IPNB conference, the Interpersonal Neurobiology Conference, and this year celebrating the work of Alan Shaw, Dr. Alan Shaw, who's done so much amazing work, particularly with right brain activity.
In other parts, we'll be discussing unproven hypotheses. And for those of you who don't know what a hypothesis is, it's a guess. It does not stand on factual information, but we'll just have to see how we go with this presentation. As always, each of you must decide for yourselves whether there's anything that you want to take away with you. And always remember that an association between two factors does not prove that one causes the other. John Bowlby gave us the science of love, the internal working model of attachment, where both positive and negative...
Well, hello everybody. Here I am back in Australia after a wonderful conference and wonderful time over in the US. Now, that talk that we just heard a little bit of from Sir Richard Bowlby went on to say some fascinating stuff. They've been doing some research. This is just research funded by himself, private research, but that's kind of good because it gives you some freedom to work. But they were looking at the nature of insecure attachments in youth and later the appearance of dementia and the risk factors and the extent to which that increased the possibility that people would have dementia. And the surprising result was that it was true, that in the sample they did, in this sort of proof of principle research, which needs a lot more work, and he's the first to describe that, of somewhere between, I think there are two groups of 60 they did, but what he was saying was that when they looked at on late onset dementia, late onset brain damage, loss of memory capacity, that it was higher in those people who had the insecure attachments, particularly trauma attachments, because of trauma. One of the suggestions was that if we are suppressing memory over a long, long period of time, does that incline the brain to be more prepared to lose memory capacities? Does it make the hippocampus more fragile? Does it make it more susceptible for apoptosis? No idea, all speculation, but how interesting. There were lots of other fabulous talks at the conference. We won't go into too much of them now because that's going to take too much time. Dan Siegel did a wonderful presentation again and looked at the history of the way we've developed. We had wonderful stories about the anthropology, about how we're not designed to be where we are. Stan Tatkin was there talking about new ways, a new sort of therapeutic process that he's developed. And all the way through, constantly giving us that reminder, that interpersonal nature. Lou Cozzolino's talk on the social necessity for engagement in order to develop mind and brain, and cultural perspectives, particularly looking at his very recent interest and latest interest in education. So that was the amazing UCLA conference, the Lifespan Learning Conference, looking again at interpersonal neurobiology, and of course the whole point of it was to celebrate the expressions and the life and the 20th anniversary of the first book publishing of Alan Shaw. Alan Shaw, who's done so much work on right brain understanding and understanding the affective regulation principles. His famous Green Book, which has now been followed up by several others, the different colours. It's just nice the way it does it, moving through the affect regulation process. So check out that. Check out Lifespan Learning at UCLA to see the sorts of things they're doing. Look out for next year's conference in March and join me, because I guess I'll be there. I kind of mecca my way there all the time. And just lastly, a quick update what's coming up. Here's something a little bit further down the track. It's in October. It's the Neuro Leadership Institute's conference. That's going to be in San Francisco, October 7 to 9. And we're just in the early bird area, the pre-conference, the 10% discount. I find the Neuro Leadership a bit expensive, but they really do have great stuff. And not only do they have wonderful leaders in neuroscience, is all led by David Rock, who's now Dr. David Rock. He's sort of really put his nose to the grindstone and got his PhD. But there'll be Maynard Webb, who's the chairman of Yahoo, and also Roseanne Williams, who's the president of Starbucks in Canada, along with fabulous people, like Josh Davies, who's from Barnard University, and Carol Dweck from Stanford. So really great and interesting people if you're interested in this idea of neuro leadership, how we take the neuroscience into business. For this week, and I'm sorry about the last couple of weeks, a little bit sort of stuck in LA, and having had my first earthquake in LA, I bid you fond adieu, and I hope you enjoy your upcoming week. Bye now.
Wow, thanks so much, Richard. I'm really jealous. I wish I had been there with you, maybe next year. Now, as usual, we like to catch up with Dr. Dave from Shrink Wrap Radio to find out what's been happening on his show. Thanks, Dr. Dave.
Hello again, Matthew, and all you citizens of cyberspace out there. It's me again to talk about my latest podcast interview, which will be number 396. And it is an interview with Dr. Steven Eisenstadt, who is founder and chancellor of the Pacifica Graduate Institute in Santa Barbara, California. This is where I send all those listeners who ask me, where could they find a graduate school where they could study depth psychology, and in particular, Jungian psychology. And so I always suggest Pacifica. Well, Dr. Eisenstadt, aside from being the founder and having created and nurtured this extraordinary graduate program, he's also the author of a book called Dream Tending. So here it is, Dream Tending, Awakening to the Healing Power of Dreams. Well, there are many books out there about dreams, and I've interviewed quite a few authors of books about dreams. It's one of my favorite topics. He has a fairly unique slant inasmuch as he's been strongly influenced by the work and thought of James Hillman, whose work and thought I have struggled with, I must say, somewhat. Dr. Eisenstadt, however, gives the clearest presentation, at least in relation to dreams that I've encountered. And basically, he's critical of people maybe like myself and other dream workers who have a tendency to rush toward interpretation, I would say, relating it to the events of the dreamer's life and to possible underlying issues, conflicts, anxieties, life situations, psychopathology, etc. Well, I'm trained as a clinical psychologist, and that tends to be my bias. Dr. Eisenstadt, his approach is kind of, hey, slow down a bit here. Let's not rush to interpretation, but rather treat the figures in the dream as autonomous beings almost, not just the figures, but all the elements of the landscape and, the table and the door, the lamp, as well as the various personages and animals that are in the dream. And since we can't really control our dreams and we can't really make ourselves dream about a particular topic or a particular plot line, you have to consider that, in fact, these are autonomous entities in that sense, that we don't have a lot of control over them. So he advocates that we welcome these archetypal personages as we would a host into our home, and that we be kind and generous hosts and not pepper them with questions right away. So it's an interesting approach. The book is very well written, so I think you'll enjoy the book. I recommend it to you without hesitation. And to get, a better feel for what you might encounter in that book, I would suggest that you listen to my interview of him. So that's it for today. Back to you, Matthew.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dave. Well, that's it for this week. I do hope that you find something that you can glean from out of our show this week. If you are disappointed, like I am, about missing out on the conference in LA, I did go online and found that all of the recordings are available as MP3 downloads. So if you follow the links that I'll place under this show, you can do what I'm going to do and capture it on MP3. Okay, so till next week, goodbye.